Sometimes the most important people in a room are the ones nobody notices, the ones standing quietly in line, waiting, hoping, carrying everything they have left inside a single chest. And sometimes the person who tries to take that last thing away from them ends up standing in front of a judge. And that judge says something that nobody in that room ever forgets. This is one of those stories. Her name was Maria Elena Reyes. She was 34 years old, and she had been fighting for her daughter's life for 6 of those years. Her daughter Sophia was 8. Sophia had a rare autoimmune condition called juvenile dermatomyositis, a disease where the body attacks its own muscles. Some mornings, Sophia could not lift her arms to brush her own hair. Maria would do it for her. Every single morning, without complaint, without a word of bitterness, she would stand behind her daughter and pull a small pink brush through Sophia's dark curls. Maria worked 2 jobs, daytime cashier at a grocery store, nighttime cleaner at a dental office. She drove a 2007 Chevy pickup with a cracked windshield and a heater that only worked on the driver's side. She wore the same 3 pairs of shoes in rotation. She never bought herself anything new. Everything went to Sophia: medical bills, medications, therapy appointments. Maria did not own a single piece of jewelry, but she always made sure Sophia had a small silver bracelet on her wrist, a gift from Sophia's late grandmother. Maria polished it every Sunday night. Now let me tell you about the other person in this story. His name was Preston Whitfield Hargrove III. He was 26 years old. His father, Preston Whitfield Hargrove II, was the CEO of Hargrove Biomedical Enterprises, a pharmaceutical distribution company worth an estimated $400 million. Preston III had never held a job, not one. He had a platinum Amex card his father paid for. He drove a black Porsche Cayenne with custom rims that cost more than Maria made in a year. He wore a Rolex Submariner he had reportedly lost twice, and each time his father bought him a new one without a word. He had 300,000 social media followers where he posted videos from clubs, yachts, and private airport lounges. He referred to ordinary people, in his own words, as background characters. He said it out loud, on camera, more than once. On the morning of November 19th, Maria woke up at 5:15 a.m. Sophia had a critical appointment, not a checkup, not a routine visit. This was the day Sophia was scheduled to receive a specialized immunoglobulin infusion treatment that had already been rescheduled 3 times due to supply shortages and insurance delays. The appointment was at the Harmon County Immunology Clinic on Birchwood Avenue. Registration opened at 8:00 a.m. The registered slots were full. Maria was on the walk-in list. She had to be there early. She arrived at 7:08 a.m. It was a cold morning, the kind of cold that gets into your bones. Sophia was bundled in a purple coat with yellow stars on it. She had her silver bracelet on. Maria held her hand. They stood in a line that already had 11 people in it, mostly parents with children, some elderly patients, one young man on crutches. Every single person in that line had a reason to be there. At 7:52 a.m., a black Porsche Cayenne pulled up to the front of the clinic, stopping directly in front of the entrance and blocking the wheelchair ramp. Preston Whitfield Hargrove III stepped out in a charcoal cashmere coat, white sneakers with box creases still in them, and wireless earbuds. He did not look at the line. He walked directly to the front door. A volunteer coordinator named Darlene Hutchins stepped forward. Darlene was 61 years old and had been volunteering at that clinic for 9 years. She politely told Preston the clinic was not yet open and that the line formed to the right. Preston took out one earbud. He looked at Darlene, then at the line, then back at Darlene. "I am not standing in that line. Do you know who my father is?" Darlene told him it did not matter who his father was. Everyone waited. Preston took out his phone, made a call loud enough for people to hear, and told whoever was on the other end that there was a problem that needed handling. Then he walked past Darlene, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The clinic was not yet open. A startled staff member near the door, an administrative assistant named Kevin Marsh, did not immediately stop him. Preston walked to the front desk and told the receptionist his name. He said his father's company supplied medications to this clinic. He said he expected to be seen first. At 8 a.m., the doors opened. The line moved forward in order, but Preston had already been given the first walk-in slot, a slot that, by arrival time, belonged to someone else. When Maria reached the desk with Sophia, she was told the first available walk-in appointment was now pushed to 10:30 a.m. at the earliest, possibly later. Maria looked at the woman behind the desk. She did not yell. She did not cause a scene. She pulled Sophia closer and said quietly, "My daughter has been waiting for this treatment for 2 months. She is in pain." The receptionist looked down. She said she was sorry. She said her hands were tied. Sophia looked up at her mother. She said, "It is okay, Mama. We can wait." Maria did not cry in front of her daughter. She sat down in a plastic chair in the waiting room, held Sophia's hand, and waited. What happened next is why this story did not end in that waiting room. There were 2 security cameras, both operational, both pointing directly at the entrance and the registration desk. Darlene Hutchins had 30 years of experience in social services before she retired. She knew what she had just witnessed. She took out her personal phone and wrote down the exact time, the license plate of the Porsche, and what Preston said to her, word for word, in her notes app. Within 40 minutes of the incident, she had submitted a formal written complaint to the clinic's patient advocacy officer. A patient advocacy officer named Rhonda Sims received the complaint at 9:22 a.m. She reviewed the camera footage that same morning. She saw exactly what happened. She pulled the registration logs and confirmed that Preston Whitfield Hargrove III had been given a slot he was not entitled to, and that at least one other patient, Maria Reyes and her daughter, had been displaced as a direct result. Rhonda escalated the complaint to the clinic's board. The board brought in legal counsel. Legal counsel notified the county health department. This was not just a matter of rudeness. This was a documented, verified case of a person using economic intimidation to interfere with medical access for a vulnerable patient. The county referred the case to the district attorney's office. And then Preston did something remarkable in its stupidity. He posted about it. On his account with 300,000 followers, he posted a video from his car that same morning. He was laughing. He said, "Some people really think waiting in line applies to everyone. Bro, I was in and out. Background characters stay in the background." He used a laughing emoji. He tagged the location. The video got 70,000 views in 4 hours. Most of those views were not from his fans. The district attorney's office filed formal charges: fraudulent misrepresentation to obtain medical services, interference with patient access to licensed medical care, and intimidation of a clinic staff member. In Harmon County, the third charge carried potential criminal liability when committed against a volunteer healthcare worker. These were real charges. This was going to a real courtroom. The courtroom was Harmon County Superior Court, Room 7. The date was March 4th. Preston arrived at 9:05 a.m. in a dark navy Tom Ford suit, silk tie, and Italian leather shoes. He walked in with 2 private attorneys and his father, who sat in the gallery with his arms crossed. Preston looked at his phone until his lead attorney made him put it away. Maria came in 3 minutes later. She wore a clean gray blouse and dark slacks. Her shoes were flat, black, slightly scuffed at the toe. She sat on the opposite side of the gallery from Preston's father and held her purse in her lap with both hands. Beside her sat Sophia in her purple coat and silver bracelet. Sophia had drawn a small picture that morning, a sun and some flowers, which Maria had folded and placed in her purse. Darlene Hutchins sat 2 rows behind Maria. She wore her clinic volunteer badge on a lanyard, even though she did not have to. She wore it on purpose. The power imbalance in that room was visible. You did not have to know the backstory to feel it. It was in the shoes, in the suits, in who had attorneys that cost $400 an hour, and who had a small silver bracelet and a folded drawing of flowers. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Claire Fontaine, played the full security footage first. Every person in the room watched Preston walk past Darlene Hutchins, push open a closed door, and stride to the front desk. Then they played his social media video, the part where he said background characters stay in the background. The courtroom did not gasp. It went very, very quiet. That kind of quiet is worse than a gasp. Darlene Hutchins took the stand. In a clear, steady voice, she said, "He looked at that line of sick children and their parents, and he decided that none of them were worth his time. I have volunteered at that clinic for 9 years. I have never seen anything like it." Then Maria took the stand. She was asked to describe what happened after she reached the registration desk. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I looked at my daughter and I thought, what do I tell her? I did not want her to know that someone had decided we did not matter. So I told her we were just going to wait a little longer. I did not want her to feel what I was feeling." The courtroom shifted. You could feel it physically. The weight in the room changed. She was then asked what happened to Sophia that day. Maria said the 10:30 slot had been pushed to 12:45. Sophia had gone 7 hours without her treatment. Her pain levels had increased. The doctor who finally saw her noted it in the medical record, clinically precisely. Patient presence with elevated inflammation markers, delayed infusion noted as contributing factor. Those medical records were entered into evidence. Sophia was not in the courtroom for this part. Maria had arranged for her to stay with a neighbor, but the silver bracelet was there. Maria was wearing it on her own wrist that day. She said later she had put it on that morning without thinking about it. It just felt right. The defense attorney, Gerald B. Fitch, argued that Preston had not technically committed fraud because he had not fabricated his identity, that the mention of his father's company was a statement of fact, not intimidation, that no direct physical harm had been proven. Then Preston took the stand. He was coached. He sat straight, used measured language, said he had not intended to cause harm, had been unaware of the clinic's protocols, and regretted the social media post. Ada Fontaine stood up. She asked him one question. "Mr. Hargrove, in your social media video, you referred to the people in that line as background characters. Was Sophia Reyes, an 8-year-old girl with a chronic illness who had waited 2 months for treatment, a background character to you?" Preston looked at his attorney. His attorney gave no signal. "That was not what I meant by that." "What did you mean?" "It was a figure of speech. A figure of speech you used while laughing in your car 30 minutes after leaving a clinic where a child was displaced from her medical appointment." He said nothing. The courtroom said nothing. That silence was the loudest thing in the room. The judge was the Honorable Patricia A. Morales, 22 years on the bench, 68 years old, silver hair pulled back, reading glasses on a beaded chain. She spoke slowly and never wasted a word. After both sides had presented everything, Judge Morales asked for the verdict. The jury forewoman stood, held the paper with both hands, and the room held its breath. "On all 3 counts, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty." Preston closed his eyes. His father pressed his hands together on his knees. Maria did not make a sound, but Darlene Hutchins, 2 rows behind her, said softly, "Thank you." Just those 2 words, to no one in particular, to everyone. When Preston's attorneys filed an immediate motion to stay sentencing, Judge Morales denied it. Sentencing would proceed as scheduled. She looked directly at Preston when she said it. Sentencing came 8 days later, March 12th. Room 7 again. Judge Morales arranged her papers, looked at Preston Hargrove for a long moment, and spoke. "I am ordering you to pay a fine of $75,000 to the Harmon County Pediatric Care Access Fund, a nonprofit that provides transportation and treatment assistance to low-income families with chronically ill children. This is not a punishment designed to hurt your bank account, Mr. Hargrove. Your bank account will not notice $75,000. This is designed to do the work that you refused to do when you looked at a line of sick children and decided they did not matter. Your money will spend the next decade doing what you would not," she continued. "I am also ordering the permanent revocation of any professional healthcare facility access privileges associated with your name and a 5-year bar from entering any licensed medical clinic as a non-patient guest or business associate. Healthcare facilities exist to treat patients, not to impress donors' children." She paused. The room was so still you could hear the ventilation system in the ceiling. "And there is one more thing." The room leaned forward. "You will write a handwritten letter of apology to Maria Elena Reyes and to her daughter Sophia." not typed, handwritten. You will also write a 5,000-word essay on the history of healthcare access inequality in the United States, with a focus on the barriers faced by uninsured and underinsured children with chronic illness. This essay will be submitted to the clerk of this court and published on the court's public record website. Your name will be attached to it. I want people to be able to look up your name and find your words about why access matters. For the rest of your life, when anyone searches your name, they will find that essay. That is not cruelty, Mr. Hargrove. That is education, and you are long overdue for it." She was not done. "Finally, you will complete 200 hours of community service, all of it at pediatric medical clinics, free clinics, or nonprofit healthcare facilities in Harmon County. You will check patients in. You will carry supplies. You will sit behind the registration desk and watch people wait, and you will understand over 200 hours exactly what that waiting feels like from the other side of the desk." She looked at him, not with anger but with something heavier. "Preston Whitfield Hargrove III, you came into this world with every advantage a human being can be given: money, access, education, health. And on November 19th, you walked into a clinic where a child who had none of those advantages had waited in the cold since 7 in the morning, and you decided that your name was worth more than her treatment. You were wrong, not in a careless way, in a way that caused measurable harm to a sick child. I want you to sit with that." She turned slightly toward the gallery. "I want to speak to your father for a moment." Preston's father straightened. The judge did not raise her voice. "You raised a son who does not know what a line is for. That did not happen by accident. Whatever you taught him about the world, it led him here. I hope this courtroom gives you something to think about." She turned back to Preston. "This sentence is not about destroying your future. It is about building your conscience. Whether you do that work is up to you, but this court has given you the framework. Use it." She put her glasses back on. "We are adjourned." The gavel came down. Preston's attorneys filed an appeal within 2 weeks, arguing the public essay requirement was unconstitutional. The appellate court denied it unanimously. The presiding judge closed his opinion with this line: "The requirement that a defendant publicly document the harm caused by his own conduct is neither unusual nor disproportionate. It is, in fact, a proportionate response to a defendant who publicly celebrated that conduct on social media." Preston began his community service in June. The first 3 weeks were exactly what you would expect. He was late twice. He wore headphones on his first day until a supervisor told him to remove them. He moved slowly. He barely made eye contact with patients. And then something happened that nobody planned. On a Tuesday morning in late July, a 7-year-old boy named Marcus came into the free clinic where Preston was working the check-in desk. Marcus had severe asthma. He was scared. He was crying softly and pulling back on his grandmother's hand. Preston came around from behind the desk. He crouched down. He got to the boy's level and said, "Hey, you know what I do when I am scared? I look for one thing in the room that is a cool color." He pointed at a blue chair in the corner. "See that chair? That is the best chair in this whole place. You want to go check it out with me?" The boy went with him. His grandmother later asked the supervisor who that young man was. The supervisor told her. The grandmother said, "Well, he has good instincts with kids." Over the following months, multiple similar notes appeared in Preston's compliance file. He began arriving early. He learned patients' names. He stopped wearing the Rolex to his service hours. He started bringing juice boxes for the pediatric waiting room out of his own pocket, not once but regularly. He submitted the essay on November 15th. It was 6,200 words, 1,200 over the requirement. The court posted it publicly as ordered. Near the end, there was a paragraph that read, "I did not understand before this sentence that a waiting room is not a neutral place. For families with money and insurance, it is an inconvenience. For families without those things, it is a reminder of every door that has ever been closed to them. I made that reminder worse for one family. I cannot undo that. I can only try to understand it well enough to never do it again." Maria read the essay. She did not post about it. She did not comment publicly. She told her neighbor she had read it. She said it was a start. Sophia, by the time the essay was published, had begun a new treatment protocol that her doctors said was showing strong early results. Her inflammation markers were down. She had started drawing again, every day, flowers and suns and elaborate dragons. Maria had framed 3 of them and put them on the wall above the kitchen table. I think about this case often. I think about what it means that a volunteer coordinator named Darlene Hutchins wrote down a license plate number at 7:52 a.m. and everything that followed from that one act. I think about how many times in how many waiting rooms across this country nothing like this happens, how many times the person who was displaced just waits, just absorbs it, has no Darlene to take notes, has no camera footage, has no DA willing to take it all the way to a jury. This case was rare, and that rarity is the real story. Not just what happened in room 7, but everything that had to go right for room 7 to happen at all. The camera had to be working. Darlene had to have her phone. The DA's office had to take the call. The jury had to be honest. The judge had to be willing to speak. That is a long chain of things that all had to hold, and they did. This time. That is why stories like this matter. Not because they show us a system that always works. They show us a system that can work, that sometimes does. And every person in that chain, every Darlene who writes something down, every Maria who holds her ground quietly, every judge who speaks clearly, makes the next case a little more possible. To anyone who has ever sat in a waiting room holding a sick child and been told to wait a little longer, you matter, your child matters, your time matters. Your pain is not background noise. You are not a background character in your own life, no matter what anyone with a Porsche and a platinum card has ever implied. The dignity you carry into those rooms, the way you hold it together for the people you love, that is not weakness. That is one of the strongest things a human being can do. And to anyone who has, through luck or birth or circumstance, been given the kind of advantages that make waiting rooms feel optional, look at the line. Really look at it. The people in it are not background. They are not obstacles. They are parents and children and grandmothers and young men on crutches, and they all got up early and they all have a reason to be there that is just as real as yours. Privilege is not the same as worth. Having more does not mean mattering more. Thank you for staying through every moment of this story. Through Maria's gray blouse, through Sophia's silver bracelet, through Darlene's phone notes and Preston's essay and a little boy named Marcus and a blue chair in the corner. Thank you for caring about all of it. The people who wait deserve to be seen. The Mariahs of this world deserve a microphone. And justice, when it actually happens, deserves a witness. Be that witness.